And we're up and running. Oh, my camera is just absolutely horrible. Okay. Welcome to Corona COVID Free Lives. Hey, Allie, how are you? Do you have questions? I gave you homework. I told anyone on here has to have a question for me. So, couple things. Again, we're talking about that we don't know when Prometric is. Hey, Eddie, we don't know when Prometric is going to release. I mean, we say the 16th, but we don't know if that's 100% permanent. I hope everyone that was doing. No, I don't even care. But I'll talk to him about. I'll talk to him in a second about the K shares. Basically, we don't know. Prometric said that they were going to. Basically, they were going to open up on the 16th, which I think they're still doing. But the point is that if this doesn't end, then we don't know when it's going to be. But I would still grab the dates as soon as you can. Okay, so I don't know if that helps you at all, but I'll go from there. So now, again, that's really super specific. And I will talk about them, but I'm not going to spend a lot of time on them because they're not really that big. Okay. So now I am going to talk about them. So K shares, okay. Well, it depends. If it's a K share preferred fund, it's just a floating rate. That's all it is. If it's a K share, then it's a floating rate, and the rates move up and down. If it's K share mutual fund, then what happens is that basically what the K share for mutual fund is what they do for they kind of lower the expenses so that pensions and tax deferred plans and mutual funds will invest with them. So again, K shares for preferreds are floating rate preferreds. K shares for mutual funds are basically a certain type of share that they let mutual funds, pension plans. I saw that, Judy. So you did your homework. That's good. So 2 people so far come at me with questions, which is good. So now, again, so K share preferreds floating, K shares mutual funds are the level of share that have lower expenses so that pension plans and 401ks can do that. Okay. Now, the L shares they're more like for annuities and stuff like that, or but they can be for mutual funds. They're called interval funds. And interval funds means that you can't sell it any day you want. Like your normal mutual fund, you can get rid of it anytime you want, anytime. But what happens is that with this kind of thing is that it's set like every week, every 7, 8, 12, however many days they set the interval. That's the only day that you can get out. That's what an L share is. So K shares is for mutual funds and pensions. L shares are interval funds where you can only get out at certain intervals. Okay. Judy, you asked, when's the best time to buy a short-term fund? So think about this. If you buy a short-term bond fund, it doesn't really matter in the fund, but for the bonds, it does. So if rates are rising, you want to buy a short-term, you want to buy short-term bonds because then you can just, like you said in your email, you can keep replacing them by buying new ones. So if you buy like a 3%, like a 3-month bond or a 1-year bond, every time they raise rates, well, that your bond is maturing, so you're going to buy a new bond with a higher rate. So that's what happens is that if I do this and then I can't see, but that's okay. I can read blurry. If you have, so the question was, when is it good to buy short-term bond or bond funds versus long-term? So short-term bond funds are better in a rising interest rate environment because if you buy a short-term fund and the rates go up, your bond is maturing and then you're going to buy a new one at the higher rate. So you keep buying better and better and better bonds. If you buy a long-term bond fund like now, so the rates are very low. So if you buy a long-term bond, you're locked in at a very low rate. So even if rates go up, it's what happens is if the rates go up, then you're locked in at this lower rate and your bond kind of sucks. Okay, so when rates are rising, you want short term so you can keep taking advantage of that. When rates are dropping, you want a long term, like you said, and so that you lock it in and hold it down. That's very nice, Eddie. So anyone who wants to reach out to him and wants a 6 book, it's great. Okay. Now, Peter's asking what's conservative, speculative. Okay. So there's not a specific definition for that, but you have to think conservative means I'm willing to give up some of the reward for giving up some of that to take on less risk for safety. I don't need, like treasuries conservative, but I'm not willing to take a lot of risk. Maybe I do blue chips or some bonds or preferreds. I don't want a lot of risk. Well, I'm looking to get, and remember, everything is risk reward, right? So the difference between the risk and the reward is you're giving up risk, but you also have to give up reward. So you're taking on safety to do that. Now, speculative means you're really gunning, okay? You're looking to take a chance. You're trying to gamble. You're speculating. You're looking for a higher reward, but you have to take on higher risk. So that's the thing, is that's kind of the game, is that we're not looking to get rid of risk. We're trying to manage it, okay? So we're trying to manage risk. This is not always about getting rid of risk. That's not your job, is to have no risk. Your job is to have a good trade-off between risk and reward, depending on what the customer wants. So if your customer is looking very conservative, you're going to do blue chips, utilities, bonds, better bonds, investment grade bonds, not junk bonds. And you're going to invest in that looking for income, and you're not really looking for a lot of growth. Speculative, you're gambling. You maybe do a small cap, maybe speculative bonds, pink sheets, bulletin board stocks, tech stocks, growth companies. Those are more speculative, more things that are not as safe. And then leverage is using margin, like you're betting. Like if you have $5,000 and you buy with margin, you can borrow $5,000 at the same time. So you have $5,000, you borrow $5,000, you now have $10,000 to invest. So you can make more money, because if you make a 10% return on 5,000, you're making $500. But if you make a 10% return on 10,000, you're making 1,000. So you can make more money. And that's the purpose of leverage, is that you can make more money, but you do have to understand that you're taking on more risk. You do absolutely understand that to do leverage, yes, your return can go up, but then also your risk can go up too. Okay, good. Now, hope that helps, Peter. Okay, limited partnerships. Okay, so there's recourse loans and non-recourse. Okay, these are the two ones. So there's recourse loans, which means if you invest in a limited partnership, you are a limited partner. You're taking on, you're investing in it. You're taking on that risk. If you do say you put in $5,000 and you want to invest another $5,000. If you do a recourse loan, that means that you're personally liable for that money, which means if the partnership fails, you still owe the money. So if you put in 5, you borrow 5, you have $10,000 invested. If the partnership fails, you lose the money and you still owe the $5,000. That's recourse. They have recourse against you. Non-recourse means they can't come after you for that. So non-recourse means you are not personally liable for this. So if you invest $5,000 into a limited partnership and then put another $5,000 as a non-recourse loan, then if the partnership fails, you don't owe that $5,000 anymore. It's not your problem. So then everyone goes, why wouldn't I just do that all the time? The only time you can really do a non-recourse loan is if it's a real estate limited partnership, a real estate limited partnership, a RELP. I call them RELPs, but real estate limited partnerships allow non-recourse loans. That's kind of it. Now, let's talk about that for a second. A little bit of limited partnership stuff. So a limited partnership is where they have a limited partner. And if you have questions, pop them in while I'm doing this. If you have limited partners, a limited partnership has limited partners and general partners. So Judy, I hope I answered your question, by the way. So there's a limited partner and there's a general partner. All limited partners have to have both an LP and a GP. The LP puts the money in and he hopes that the GP is going to do a good job. The GP runs it. They're doing all that work. They do all the work. They have to have a little bit. They have to have at least 1% invested in the fund, but they're running it. They're like the manager. They are not. They cannot compete. Awesome. They cannot compete. So you cannot be as a GP in multiple general partnerships. You can only be in one, okay? But as a limited partner, you're just an investor. You're not really getting involved. You're not allowed to get involved. So you can invest in as many as you want. But think of this as, why do I invest in a limited partnership? Well, because they pass through the gains and losses. And you're like, wait, why would I want a loss? It's not a loss like you're losing money. It's loss like a write-off. Like right now, if you guys do your own taxes, no, you don't have to do them now, not till July. But if you did, what you can do is you can write off. You can give money to charity. You can do this, business expenses. So if you make 50 grand a year and you have, 1,000 in charitable, all this, and 1,000 in expenses, you can reduce your income. That's a write-off or a loss. So the more you reduce your income, the less you pay taxes. Like this whole stimulus thing. They're saying if your adjusted gross income is under 75,000, you get $1,200. You could make 90 and still get the money, because if you have 90 plus you have money in an IRA and you have this and that, and you have all these deductions, and you bring your adjusted income down below the 75 grand, then you're going to get the money. But that's adjusted gross. And that's what happens here with a limited partnership, is that you're putting money in and you're getting money, but you're also getting write-offs, piece of paper, like you're going to get, depreciation or depletion. These are write-offs to lower your income so you pay less taxes. Because if you make 50 and you have to pay 10% in taxes, that's 5 grand. But if I can adjust your income down to 40 and you pay 10%, you're only paying 4 grand. So that's why you do that. But the main reason you invest in a limited partnership is to make money. That's the number one reason, and to get write-offs. It's also non-correlated, which means it doesn't go with the market. So like right now with what's going on, the market's up and down. Limited partnerships won't move the same way. They may by luck, but it's more, they're non-correlated, which means they're not attached to the market. So they don't move up and down with the market. So now there's 3 main types of limited partnerships. There's equipment leasing, which is just basically next time you go see a bus, look on the side and it goes operated by and owned by. Owned by is equipment leasing company, and the operated by is the one who's leasing it from them. They make their money by buying buses and planes and trains and leasing them out. And they take investors like limited partners to invest in it. And remember, the limited partner has nothing to do with the company other than dropping cash. Then we have real estate limited partnership, which basically you just invest. And you invest, and again, you can't control it, but this partnership will invest in real estate, and they will pass through the gains and losses. Unlike a REIT, a real estate limited partnership passes through both gains and losses, and it's not liquid. A REIT passes through gains only in the form of a dividend. Remember, so a REIT is unlike a RELP, real estate limited partnership. A REIT it's not a mutual fund, but it acts like one, because it passes through the gains only, not the losses. And it has to pass through 90% of its income to the shareholders, and then the shareholders pay taxes on that money. But the losses or the write-offs don't come through. That gets taken out on the REIT level, not on your level. Now, the last one that you're going to worry about is the oil and gas. Oil and gas is where they're drilling for oil and they're selling it. So there's 3 types. There's speculative, where there's really the exploratory, which is known as wildcatting. Then we have development, and then we have income. The riskiest is the speculative one, which is the wildcatting or exploratory. There we're just drilling for oil and we're trying to find oil and hope we hit a gusher. Then we have the developmental one, where we're taking that and turning it into an income producing. So we drill for oil, we got a gusher, we cap it, we put a cap on it, and then we have a developmental come in, and they turn it into an income producing. They take that thing, put the wells in, set up the distribution networks, and then they go, okay, we just did. That's what limited partnerships are. Okay, tax shelters are limited partnerships. That's what they are. And then the third one is income producing. Income is where they're just selling the oil. They have it, they just sell it, they ship it out. Now there's depreciation, which is for anything that's man-made. So any man-made shit is depreciation. Trucks, houses, buildings, stuff like that. You get to write off the fact that it's worth less every year. Depletion, as I say, it's for God-made shit. So as you sell oil, gas, trees, lumber, same thing, coal, diamonds, anything that you sell to the public, and you have less of, you can write off the fact that you can't sell it anymore. That's called depletion. So depreciation is for man-made stuff. Depletion is for selling stuff that is, is already is made by God, and you're just running out of it. So what I meant by tax shelters are limited partnerships are tax shelters. If you go any deeper than that, you're reading the wrong book. You do not need to go any deeper than that. That's where that is. So now a couple things. So we have retirement accounts. I'm going to talk about this, and if you guys have questions, let me know. So there's qualified versus not qualified. There's qualified retirement accounts, which are sponsored by corporations. It's like a 401k. It's like a pension plan, stuff like that. Those are sponsored by a corporation, and the money goes in pre-tax. And then when you take it out, you pay tax on everything. And what happens is that you have to, the earliest you take it out is 59 and a half. You must start taking it out by the time you're 72 and a half. Now it was 7 and a half. Now it's 72 and a half. And that's called an RMD. RMD is when you have to start taking it out. And if you're watching the news, part of this new bill they came out with, and if you're watching this a year from now, it's kind of worthless. They're waiving the RMD requirements so that you don't have to start taking the money out, because they don't want to have to make you sell everything. Because remember, to take your money out of a retirement account, you probably have to sell the assets. And now the assets are down 15, 20%. They don't want to make you do it, so they're saying that you don't have to take your money out. You don't have to take it out and take profits or take losses. So qualified means the money goes in pre-tax, which means the money has never been taxed. It grows tax deferred, and then you take it out and you pay tax on everything at ordinary income. Now, non-qualified is something that's not sponsored by a corporation. That's like an annuity or technically a non-qualified IRA. So these are plans that are not sponsored by a corporation, like payroll deferring, that stuff. Okay, income deferred. So now these things go in after tax. So the money has been taxed. So you put in 20 grand into this, and then it grows to 100. Well, you've already paid tax on the 20. So you only pay tax on the 80 grand that's above the 20. As opposed to a qualified, you put in 20 grand, and then it grows to 100. You're paying tax on the whole 100 because you never paid taxes on it. On the non-qualified, you put the money in after tax, it grows tax deferred, and then you just pay tax on the growth. I only got a few questions. Peter, thank you. Allie, thank you. Judy, thank you. I think because I'm doing it twice a week now, it's probably less people, less questions. I also think people are working. I have one girl said she's been working worse hours than normal. Look, everyone, I'm telling you, just do as much as you can. If you're working during the day, just try to get just some studying in. Don't go crazy over this. Know that you have a full month. Again, I say this over and over again. You're going to have at least a month, 3 weeks to study no matter what. So I would make sure you focus on reading. So one thing before I go. So I mentioned it on the Series 66. So if you're not taking the 6, okay. I'm not going heavy into options, but I do want so ratio call writing, you need to understand the theory. Okay. So the ratio call writing is when if you buy 1,000 shares of IBM, you would normally sell 10 calls against it because that matches up. 10 calls is 1,000 shares. You buy 1,000 shares. But if there's a beta of like 1.5, which means the stock, if you look at an old one, I talked about beta. If a beta of 1.5, then the stock is going to move more than than just normal. So you would have to sell more calls to adjust it. So in this case, if you had 1,000 shares and a beta of 1.5, you would normally sell 10 calls, but just multiply the 10 times 1.5 and you would sell 15 calls to match up. They're not going to make you do the math on that. Just understand the theory is that ratio call writing is selling more calls than you own stock. But the problem is once you sell one call more than you own stock, you have, in this case, if you had 15 calls, you would have 10 covered calls and 5 naked calls. Okay, so you would have, you don't own stock, you sell calls, you sell more calls based on beta than you own stock. But the problem is anything you sold for more, any options that you sold for more than covering the stock, it's considered a naked call and you would have unlimited risk. Okay. It's okay. If I do 20 minutes twice a week, that's fine. I'm hold it up. Just tell people and we'll get this bigger and bigger. I just think the next couple of weeks, people are not focused on this stuff. So they're not online. Just send it to your bosses. And I'm glad I helped you on that one. I think that works. Again, tell people if you think there's any exam, even if it's a 66, 63, 24, I'll help them. I'm just trying to help out and choose something. I'm going to go back to once a week once this thing is over. But right now I'm doing it Tuesdays and Thursdays. And I send out a community post. So anyone who watches this, look at the post I sent and answer that poll to see if there's a better time. It may be 7 p.m. is better. Just trying to help out. Okay. You all have a good night and wash your hands. Don't touch your face. Okay. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.